Pope Francis death news live. Condolences pour in from across the globe as Pope dies at 8:08 p.m. Francis death news live. Pope Francis, history's first Latin American pontiff who charmed the world with his humble style, passed away at 88, Vatican Camerlengo Cardinal Kevin Farrell informed on Monday. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the home of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his Church. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Vatican Camerlengo, said in an announcement. He had suffered from chronic lung disease, and a part of one lung was removed when he was young. He was admitted to Gemelli Hospital on February 14 this year for a respiratory problem that grew into double pneumonia. Francis spent 38 days in the hospital. He had become Pope in 2013 after his predecessor, Benedict XVI, resigned. Pope was the Bishop of Rome and leader of the Catholic Church. Condolences poured in from across the world on the solemn occasion. Follow live updates. Pope Francis was the rare leader who made us want to be better people. In his humility and his gestures at once simple and profound, embracing the sick, ministering to the homeless, washing the feet of young prisoners, he shook us out of our complacency and reminded us that we are all bound by moral obligations to God and one another. Today, Michelle and I mourn with everyone around the world, Catholic and non-Catholic alike, who drew strength and inspiration from the Pope's example. May we continue to heed his call to never remain on the sidelines of this march of living hope, says Barack Obama. On behalf of the worldwide BAPS Swaminarayan Hindu Fellowship, we extend our deepest condolences on the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. His departure is a profound loss to the Catholic community and Christians around the world. Pope Francis will be remembered as a beacon of hope, compassion, and unity. His efforts to promote social justice, environmental stewardship, and peace-building have left an indelible mark. His commitment to the marginalized and his call for global solidarity resonated deeply with the values we hold dear in our own tradition. Watch Odisha passing away of Pope Francis. Sand artist Sudarshan Patnaik creates a sculpture at beach in Puri to pay tribute to Pope Francis. Pic.twitter.com Xrax Ani April 21, 2025 Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake on Monday expressed sorrow on the demise of Pope Francis, who passed away at the age of 88. It is with deep sorrow that I extend my heartfelt condolences on the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis, on behalf of the people of Sri Lanka. His unwavering commitment to peace, compassion and humanity has left an indelible mark on the world, he said in a statement. U.S. President Donald Trump paid his respects to late Pope Francis on Monday in a short post on his Truth Social platform. Rest in peace Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who loved him. Trump said. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva on Monday declared a 7-day mourning for Pope Francis after his death. Humanity loses today a voice of respect and welcome for others, Lula said in a statement. May God comfort those who today, everywhere in the world, suffer the pain of this enormous loss. In his memory and in homage to his work, I decree a 7-day mourning in Brazil, he added. Argentina's President Javier Milei I will decree 7 days of national mourning after the death of Pope Francis, his spokesman said Monday. Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, his cabinet colleagues, and leaders of various political parties in the state on Monday hailed the contributions of Pope Francis and condoled his demise, cutting across political lines. Pope Francis often recounted playing as a young boy on the streets of Buenos Aires using a ball made of rags. He said he wasn't the best and joked about having 2 left feet, but he played anyway, most often as a goalkeeper. It was, he believed, the best way to learn how to respond to dangers that could arrive from anywhere. The body of a pope is generally buried between 4 to 6 days after his death. It is led by the Dean of the College of Cardinals, currently 91-year-old Italian Giovanni Battista Re. The bells of Paris Notre Dame Cathedral tolled 88 times in memory of Pope Francis, who died on Monday at the age of 88. A mass will also be held in the church for Pope Francis later in the day. City authorities will also turn off the lights on the Eiffel Tower on Monday night in memory of the Pope. Former U.S. President Joe Biden expressed grief over Pope Francis' death and said, "It is with great sadness that Jill and I learned of the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. He was unlike any who came before him. Pope Francis will be remembered as one of the most consequential leaders of our time, and I am better for having known him. For decades, he served the most vulnerable across Argentina, and his mission of serving the poor never ceased. As Pope, he was a loving pastor and challenging teacher who reached out to different faiths. He commanded us to fight for peace and protect our planet from a climate crisis. He advocated for the voiceless and powerless. He made all feel welcome and seen by the Church. He promoted equity and an end to poverty and suffering across the globe. And above all, he was a pope for everyone. He was the people's pope, a light of faith, hope, and love. Pope Francis, who passed away on Easter Monday, April 21, 2025, at the age of 88, leaves behind a 1-2-year papacy shaped by moral reckoning and radical compassion. As the first Jesuit and the first Latin American to lead the Catholic Church, his tenure was marked by a deep engagement with 2 of its most painful and controversial issues: the sexual abuse of minors by clergy, and the Church's historically fraught relationship with LGBTQ individuals. Kerala Minister P. Rajiv condoled the death of Pope Francis and said, "Years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Pope Francis. I introduced myself by saying, 'I am a communist from Kerala.' He smiled warmly, blessed me and gifted me a rosary. In return, I handed him a copy of Karl Marx's Capital and Present, a book that reflected many of the values he often spoke about. He told me about his support for liberation movements during his life in Argentina, which deepened my respect for him. In 2018, during the devastating floods in Kerala, he prayed for the victims at St. Peter's Square and called upon the world to help us. Recently, while reading his autobiography Hope, I saw how deeply he cared about the poor and criticized a world becoming the playground of the rich. Pope Francis lived for the oppressed and marginalized. Even a single meeting was enough to understand his heart. EAM Drive S.J. Shankar mourned the death of Pope Francis and said, saddened at the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. His compassion and commitment to building a better world defined his papacy. May his soul rest in peace. On the passing away of Pope Francis, Major Archbishop of the Syro-Malabar Church, Mar Raphael Thadil said, the Holy Father said that all religions are equally important. The whole ministry of the Holy Father can be concluded in one word: love God and love the neighbor. He wished to come to India, but due to his ill health, he could not realize it. He loved India deeply, saddened by the passing away of His Holiness Pope Francis. He will be remembered for his remarkable service to the human society, especially poor and the marginalized. My thoughts are with the millions around the world who grieve his demise, Ravnath Singh said while condoling the death. Deeply saddened to hear of the death of His Holiness Pope Francis. His tireless efforts to promote a world that is fairer for all will leave a lasting legacy. On behalf of the people of the United Kingdom, I share my sincerest condolences to the whole Catholic Church. UK PM Keir Starmer condoles the passing away of Pope Francis. The King's message following the death of Pope Francis. Pic.twitter.com Nusakskmite the Royal Family April 21, 2025 NANO and the passing away of Pope Francis, Parish Priest of St. Thomas International Cathedral Basilica Reverend Father Dr. Vincent Chinadure said, with deep sorrow, I am sad to announce that Pope Francis passed away this morning. In 2024, he simplified the rules for the Pope's funeral. He wanted the funeral rites to be simple with a focus on faith. He expressed our heartfelt condolences. Former UK PM Rishi Sunak said, Pope Francis spoke to the world with moral clarity and humility. He reminded us of the dignity of every person, especially the poor and those without a voice. My thoughts are with Catholics and all those around the world who drew strength from his leadership. Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav condoled the passing away of Pope Francis and said, farewell to Pope Francis, a true servant of peace and justice. Your legacy lives on. Archbishop of Hyderabad, Cardinal Paola Anthony issues a statement. It is with profound sorrow and a heavy heart that I share with you the deeply saddening news of the passing of our beloved Holy Father, Pope Francis today, the April 21, 2025. His departure from this earthly life marks the end of a truly historic papakyon filled with compassion, humility, and a tireless dedication to the gospel. Pope Francis was not only a shepherd to the universal church but also a prophetic voice of mercy, justice, and peace in our world. He reminded us constantly to go to the peripheries, to care for the poor and marginalized, and to be instruments of God's love in all that we do. Maharashtra CM Devendra Fadnavis mourned the demise of Pope Francis and said, saddened by the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. My heartfelt condolences to the global Catholic community. He will forever be remembered as a beacon of compassion, humility, and spiritual courage. His unwavering commitment to serving the poor and the marginalized touched the lives of millions across the world. May his soul rest in peace. West Bengal CM Mamata Banerjee mourned the demise of Pope Francis and said, saddened to know of the demise of His Holiness Pope Francis, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church. The Pope is the highest esteemed authority in the Catholic world, and billions of Christians in this planet revere him as the Supreme Pontiff. My heart goes out to all my fellow Christian brothers and sisters in India and rest of the world, and I feel connected with them all in a profound sense of loss and empathy. Francis' death comes a day after the Pope had made his first prolonged public appearance since being discharged on March 23 from a 38-day hospital stay for pneumonia. AAP chief Arvind Kejriwal mourned the demise of Pope Francis and called him a true symbol of humility and spiritual strength. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari condoled the demise of Pope Francis and said, my sincere condolences to the global Catholic community. His legacy of love and humility will endure for generations. May his soul rest in eternal peace in the presence of the divine. Last year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Pope Francis on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Italy and exchanged pleasantries. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi offered condolences on the demise of Pope Francis and said that he inspired millions across faiths with his message of love and humanity. Deeply saddened by the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis, a global voice of compassion, justice, and peace. He stood by the downtrodden and the marginalized, spoke fearlessly against inequality, and inspired millions across faiths with his message of love and humanity. My thoughts are with the Catholic community in India and around the world, Rahul Gandhi tweeted. Netherlands Foreign Minister Casper Veldkamp offered condolences on the Pope's demise and said that he greatly promoted inter-religious dialogue. On the global stage, he stressed the importance of caring for the environment and worked tirelessly for poverty reduction and world peace. He tweeted. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed anguish over the passing of Pope Francis and said that he will always be remembered as a beacon of compassion, humility, and spiritual courage. Recalling his meetings with Pope, the Prime Minister said that he was greatly inspired by Pope's commitment to inclusive and all-round development. His affection for the people of India will always be cherished. May his soul find eternal peace in God's embrace, PM Modi tweeted. Deeply pained by the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis. In this hour of grief and remembrance, my heartfelt condolences to the global Catholic community. Pope Francis will always be remembered as a beacon of compassion, humility, and spiritual courage by millions across the pic. Twitter.com Cod 5YTXRB Narendra Modi April 21, 2025 Nan Pope Francis passed away at 7:35 am on Monday. He was 88. What will happen next? Pope Francis died at 88 on Monday. A look at who is likely to succeed him. Pope Francis' papacy was defined by several firsts. He was the first pope from the Americas or the Southern Hemisphere. French President Emmanuel Macron offered condolences on the demise of Pope Francis and said, "From Buenos Aires to Rome, Pope Francis wanted the Church to bring joy and hope to the poorest. That it would unite people with one another and with nature. May this hope continue to be reborn beyond him." To all Catholics, and to the grieving world, my wife and I send our thoughts, he tweeted. European Parliament President Roberta Metsola mourned the demise of Pope Francis and said that his contagious smile captured people's hearts across the world. Condolences started pouring in from all parts of the world as the news of Pope Francis' death was made public by the Vatican. Pope Francis suffered from double pneumonia when he was admitted to the hospital for 38 days, the longest hospitalization of his 12-year papacy. When he was young, he suffered from a chronic lung disease and had part of one lung removed. Pope Francis was admitted to Gemelli Hospital in Rome on February 14, 2025. For a respiratory crisis. Latest blogs.